In the auction business, I've learned to expect anything.
It's a gas-powered blender.
I don't want to offend you. That's you give a price and stick to the price.
If I got something that you think this is authentic,
Absolutely. Kapow.
we've got some fun items. This is a John Wayne commemorative gun collection.
T-bucket with the American flag motif. I'll take 13,000. Last call.
Sold. Now give him a big kiss.
For 4 seasons, Paul Brown and Gallery 63 turned forgotten junk into million-dollar discoveries. Celebrity collectors, record-breaking auctions, and 1.5 million weekly viewers made Auction King's Discovery Channel's hottest reality hit. Then overnight, it vanished completely. Paul, his team, and the entire auction house disappeared without explanation. What really destroyed America's most successful auction show? Join us as we expose the shocking truth behind Auction King's sudden death. Paul Brown wasn't born into the auction world. He earned his place. Growing up in rural Georgia, Paul developed an eye for value where others saw only junk. His father, an antique dealer himself, taught young Paul to spot quality craftsmanship and historical significance in items others overlooked. This foundation would later become the cornerstone of his success. Gallery 63 began as nothing more than a modest auction house in Sandy Springs, Georgia. Before television cameras and national attention, it was just Paul and a small team running weekend auctions out of a nondescript building. Regular consigners and local collectors formed the backbone of the business. These humble beginnings established Paul's reputation for honesty and fair dealing, qualities that would later make him the perfect television personality. By 2010, reality television was evolving. Viewers were growing tired of obviously scripted reality shows and craved authentic content. Discovery Channel executives, sensing this shift, began searching for genuine businesses they could showcase. When they discovered Gallery 63, they found exactly what they were looking for: real auctions with unpredictable outcomes and a charismatic auctioneer in Paul Brown. The show premiered with little fanfare but immediately connected with audiences. Unlike stage competitions or manufactured drama, Auction Kings offered something refreshingly genuine: the thrill of the treasure hunt. Viewers experienced the excitement of never knowing what might walk through the door next. Would it be worthless junk or a priceless artifact? This unpredictability created natural tension no script could match. What truly set Auction Kings apart was its commitment to authenticity. The auctions featured on the show were real events with actual bidders spending real money. When Paul's gavel fell, genuine transactions occurred. This authenticity resonated with viewers tired of the manufactured drama plaguing other reality programs. Paul's expertise quickly became the show's centerpiece. His ability to identify valuable items others had dismissed as worthless created magical television moments. Whether examining an alleged Civil War artifact or evaluating a vintage arcade game, Paul's knowledge seemed boundless. Viewers trusted his assessments and admired his straightforward approach to both sellers and buyers. Beyond mere entertainment, Auction Kings educated its audience. Each episode delivered history lessons wrapped in engaging stories. Viewers learned about antique firearms, vintage cars, historical memorabilia, and countless other collectibles. This educational component elevated the show above simple reality fare into something genuinely enriching. As the show's popularity grew, so did its profile. Celebrity collectors began consigning items, recognizing the show's promotional value. High-profile auctions featuring memorabilia from music legends, sports icons, and historical figures became ratings goldmines. These special events further cemented the show's reputation as must-see television. At its peak, Auction Kings attracted 1.5 million viewers weekly, an impressive figure for cable television. The show's international syndication brought Paul Brown's Southern charm into homes across Europe, Asia, and Australia. Gallery 63 transformed from a local auction house into a global brand, with fans traveling hundreds of miles just to visit the now famous location. The team dynamic provided another layer of appeal. Cindy's organizational skills kept the auction house running smoothly. John's enthusiasm for oddities and willingness to try anything made for entertaining television. Dr. Laurie's authentication expertise added credibility to the appraisals. Together with Paul, they created a family-like atmosphere viewers connected with emotionally. Yet beneath this success story, pressure was building. Television production demands were creating unseen strain on the auction house and its staff. The cracks forming in this foundation would eventually threaten everything Paul had built, both on and off camera. What viewers didn't see behind those entertaining episodes was the grueling production schedule that transformed Gallery 63's normal operations. A typical auction house runs on consistent schedules with established procedures. Television production, however, follows its own unpredictable timeline. Filming often disrupted regular auction schedules, forcing the business to adapt to production needs rather than customer requirements. As ratings grew, so did Discovery Channel's expectations. Producers began pushing for more dramatic storylines, more shocking appraisals, more emotional seller reactions, more unexpected auction results. What had begun as a documentary-style show was gradually being nudged toward more conventional reality television formulas. This shift created tension with Paul's commitment to running an authentic auction business. Producer involvement increased with each season. While early episodes simply documented the natural flow of the auction house, later seasons saw more intervention. Producers began selecting which items would appear on camera based on visual appeal or storytelling potential rather than auction value. This curation process sometimes meant genuinely valuable items were passed over for more television-friendly pieces. Maintaining authentic auctions while serving television needs became increasingly challenging. Real auctions follow established protocols designed to ensure fairness and transparency. Television production requires retakes, extended explanations, and visual setups that disrupt these protocols. Balancing these competing demands required constant compromise from both the business and production team. Paul's frustration grew as the show pushed for more manufactured moments. A man who built his reputation on honesty and transparency, he resisted attempts to stage reactions or create artificial drama. These behind-the-scenes conflicts rarely surfaced on camera, but created growing tension during production meetings and filming sessions. Regular customers felt the impact most directly. Longtime Gallery 63 patrons sometimes found themselves unable to access the auction house. During filming, consigners faced delays as production schedules took precedence over normal business operations. The very customer base that had built Gallery 63 before television began feeling marginalized by the show's demands. Staff burnout became another invisible consequence. The team wasn't just running an auction house. They were now television personalities working double duty. After long filming days capturing content for the show, they still needed to handle the actual business operations. This grueling schedule took a personal toll that viewers never witnessed on their screens. Financial complications emerged that contradicted the show's appearance of success. While television exposure brought in more consignments, the disrupted schedules and production demands increased operating costs. The economics of television production and auction house operations didn't always align, creating business challenges invisible to viewers enjoying the finished product. Television timelines and proper auction procedures increasingly came into conflict. Proper authentication of items requires time and expertise. Television production schedules demand quick turnarounds and clear narratives. These fundamentally different approaches created situations where the show's needs and proper auction protocols couldn't easily coexist. The tension between authenticity and entertainment value became the central struggle. Paul and his team had built their reputations on running legitimate auctions. Television producers were tasked with creating engaging content. When these goals aligned, the show thrived. When they conflicted, difficult choices had to be made about which priority would prevail. Warning signs accumulated as these pressures mounted. Staff members expressed concerns about the direction the show was taking. Regular customers voiced frustrations about changes to the auction house's operations. Paul himself began questioning whether television fame was enhancing or undermining the business he'd spent years building. This mounting pressure was building toward a breaking point. What appeared to viewers as a seamless success story was, behind the scenes, becoming an increasingly unsustainable balancing act between television entertainment and legitimate auction business. By the fourth season, Discovery Channel executives were pushing for more sensational content. Network data showed that episodes featuring unusual items or dramatic appraisal surprises generated higher ratings. This led to increased pressure to focus on spectacle over substance. Producers began requesting more wow moments, regardless of whether they represented the authentic auction experience. Specific incidents highlighted this growing divide. During one memorable episode, producers wanted Paul to emphasize the potential value of a Civil War artifact before authentication was complete. When expert analysis later revealed the item was a reproduction, Paul refused to pretend otherwise, despite producers' suggestions to maintain the narrative excitement. This commitment to honesty preserved his credibility, but created production tension. Paul's resistance to compromising his auction house's integrity intensified as these requests became more frequent. Having built his reputation on fair dealing and transparent transactions, he understood that television theatrics could undermine the trust essential to his business. Each time he chose authenticity over drama, relationships with production staff grew more strained. The fundamental conflict became increasingly clear. Running a legitimate auction house and creating television entertainment were often incompatible goals. Real auctions follow strict procedures designed to ensure fairness for both buyers and sellers. Television production requires narrative arcs, visual excitement, and emotional moments. These different priorities created situations where satisfying both was impossible. Financial pressures complicated matters further. While the show brought fame and increased consignments, production demands disrupted normal business operations. Extra staff were needed to manage filming logistics. Regular auctions were postponed to accommodate shooting schedules. The actual cost-benefit analysis of television exposure versus business disruption was shifting unfavorably. Staff members began voicing concerns about the show's direction. Longtime employees who valued the auction house's reputation worried about how television portrayal might affect their professional standing in the industry. Some expressed discomfort with how staging and production requirements were altering the authentic auction experience they took pride in providing. Customer complaints mounted as accessibility issues increased. Loyal buyers who had supported Gallery 63 before television fame found themselves unable to participate in auctions during filming. Consigners faced delays as television-worthy items received preferential treatment. The core business that had sustained Gallery 63 was being compromised to serve production needs. The pivotal moment came during contract negotiations for a potential fifth season. Discovery Channel representatives proposed format changes that would have fundamentally altered the show's approach. These included more staged discoveries, prearranged auction outcomes for dramatic effect, and increased producer control over which items would be featured. For Paul, these changes crossed a line he wasn't willing to cross. In a decisive meeting with network executives, Paul made his position clear. He would not sacrifice his auction house's integrity for television ratings. The authenticity that had made the show successful initially was now being viewed as a limitation by producers seeking more dramatic content. This fundamental disagreement about the show's direction created an impasse neither side could overcome. Paul's decision prioritized his auction house's long-term reputation over continued television fame. With 20 years invested in building Gallery 63's credibility, he understood that compromising his business standards for television would ultimately destroy what he had worked so hard to build. This principled stance effectively ended any possibility of continuing the series as it had existed. The final straw wasn't a single dramatic incident, but the cumulative realization that the show's direction had become incompatible with ethical auction practices. Paul recognized that each compromise was eroding the foundation of his business, and continuing would eventually leave him with television fame, but a damaged auction house. This conflict wasn't fundamentally about money or ratings. Both the network and Gallery 63 were profiting from the arrangement. The irreconcilable difference was about business philosophy and professional integrity. Paul's unwillingness to compromise his auction standards for entertainment value ultimately made continuing the show impossible on terms acceptable to both parties. The end came with shocking abruptness. Filming simply stopped, with no official announcement from Discovery Channel. One day, production crews were capturing footage for upcoming episodes. The next, they were gone. This sudden cessation left viewers completely unprepared for the show's disappearance from programming schedules. Paul Brown maintained a conspicuous silence about the cancellation. Despite fan inquiries flooding social media and the auction house's contact channels, he offered no public explanation for the show's end. This silence fueled speculation, but also demonstrated his desire to move forward without publicly criticizing the network or production company. Gallery 63 immediately returned to operating as a traditional auction house. Staff schedules normalized, regular auction procedures resumed, and the business refocused on serving consigners and buyers rather than television audiences. This quick pivot revealed how ready Paul was to return to business as usual, without the cameras. Discovery Channel made the notable decision not to continue the show with a different cast or location. Unlike other successful reality formats that simply replaced departing personalities, Auction Kings was allowed to end completely. This suggested the network recognized that Paul Brown's authenticity was irreplaceable and central to the show's appeal. Fan speculation exploded across online forums and social media. Theories ranged from contract disputes and salary negotiations to behind-the-scenes conflicts and declining ratings. Without official statements, these rumors multiplied, creating a mythology around the show's cancellation that often missed the fundamental issue of business integrity versus entertainment demands. The complete absence of farewell episodes denied viewers any closure. Most successful television series receive final episodes acknowledging the end, thanking viewers, and providing resolution. Auction Kings simply vanished from programming schedules, reinforcing the impression of behind-the-scenes conflict rather than a planned conclusion. Industry insiders with knowledge of reality television production understood the likely reality. The inherent tension between authentic business operations and compelling television content had reached a breaking point. Sources close to the production suggested Paul's refusal to compromise his auction standards for more dramatic television ultimately made continuing impossible. Paul's focus shifted entirely to rebuilding Gallery 63 without television interference. Regular auction schedules resumed, consignment procedures returned to industry standards, and customer relationships became the priority once again. This rapid return to traditional operations demonstrated his commitment to the auction business over television fame. Maintaining the customer base developed during the show's popularity presented challenges. Some visitors came expecting the television experience rather than a legitimate auction house. Staff needed to manage these expectations while preserving the professional standards that had been Gallery 63's foundation before television exposure. Several key staff members remained with Gallery 63 after the show ended, demonstrating their loyalty to the business rather than television opportunities. This continuity helped maintain relationships with longtime customers and consignors who valued the auction house's reputation over its television profile. Neither Paul nor Discovery Channel ever publicly explained the ending. This mutual silence suggested a professional parting, rather than a bitter conflict. Both parties apparently recognized that public disagreement would serve neither's interests, choosing instead to move forward separately without assigning blame. The truth behind the ending was ultimately more about business philosophy than personal conflicts. Paul Brown's commitment to running a legitimate auction house with proper procedures and transparent dealings became incompatible with increasingly dramatic television requirements. When forced to choose between entertainment value and professional integrity, Paul chose the standards that had built his business before television discovered it. Today, Paul Brown continues running Gallery 63 as a successful traditional auction house. Without television production requirements disrupting operations, the business has returned to regular auction schedules, serving collectors and consignors throughout the Southeast. Weekly auctions proceed without cameras, following industry standards rather than entertainment requirements. Free from television constraints, Gallery 63 returned to the auction formats that worked best for their business model. Regular preview periods allow buyers to properly examine items. Auctions follow established industry procedures without interruptions for explanations or dramatic reveals. This return to traditional operations has restored the business efficiency that television production had disrupted. The auction house continues to thrive in the antique and collectible market. While no longer benefiting from weekly television exposure, Gallery 63 maintains a strong reputation for quality consignments and fair dealing. The customer base includes both longtime patrons who supported the business before television and new clients who discovered it through the show. Several staff members featured prominently on Auction Kings remained with Gallery 63 after the cameras departed. Their continued presence provided valuable continuity during the transition back to normal operations. These employees demonstrated their commitment to the auction business rather than pursuing further television opportunities, reinforcing the authenticity that had made the show appealing initially. Paul makes occasional appearances at antique shows and industry events, but is largely withdrawn from the public spotlight. Unlike many reality television personalities who leverage their fame into continued media presence, he has chosen to focus on his business rather than celebrity status. These limited public appearances focus on antiques and auctions rather than his television past. Within the antique dealing community, Gallery 63's reputation remains strong, precisely because of Paul's choice to prioritize business integrity over continued television fame. Professional dealers respect his decision to maintain auction standards rather than compromise for entertainment value. This industry respect has proven more valuable long-term than continued television exposure. Gallery 63 successfully leveraged its television fame into sustained business success without remaining dependent on media exposure. The show introduced the auction house to a national audience, creating brand recognition that continues benefiting the business years after the cameras departed. This transition from television phenomenon to established auction house represents a rare success story in reality television aftermaths. Paul's choice to maintain privacy about the show's ending reflects his professional approach to both television and auctions. Rather than engaging in public disputes or attempting to control the narrative, he simply returned to the work he had always valued most. This dignified silence maintained relationships with the network while preserving his professional reputation. The central lesson emerging from the Auction King story concerns the delicate balance between media exposure and business integrity. Paul demonstrated that temporary fame holds little value compared to the long-term trust essential in the auction industry. By choosing his business principles over television requirements, he preserved what truly mattered for sustainable success. Current operations at Gallery 63 focus entirely on serving collectors and consigners, rather than television audiences. Weekly auctions feature quality items selected for value rather than visual appeal or storytelling potential. Consignment procedures prioritize proper authentication and fair representation over dramatic reveals. This return to auction fundamentals has restored the business's professional foundation. Paul Brown's legacy spans both television and the auction industry. In television, he represented a rare example of genuine expertise and authenticity in the reality genre. Within the auction world, he demonstrated how to leverage media exposure without compromising professional standards. This dual legacy continues influencing both industries years after Auction Kings disappeared from television schedules. Ultimately, Paul's decision to walk away from television fame preserved what mattered most: the integrity of the business he had spent decades building. While viewers lost an entertaining program, Gallery 63 retained its professional reputation and continues serving the antique community with the standards that made it successful before cameras ever arrived. In choosing long-term business viability over continued television exposure, Paul Brown demonstrated the principles that had made him a trusted auctioneer in the first place. Where is Paul Brown today? Do you think he made the right choice prioritizing his business over television fame? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.